Ibrahim Traoré's message to the world, standing with Pakistan in times of crisis. You won't believe what just happened. The city of Ouagadougou was quiet that night. The wind moved slowly through the empty streets, carrying dust and silence. Inside the presidential palace, all the lights were off except one, a single room on the top floor where Ibrahim Traoré sat alone. His eyes were fixed on the television screen. But it wasn't a movie or the news. It was a live video, shaky, blurry, terrifying. A hospital in Lahore, Pakistan, had lost power. Doctors ran with flashlights. Newborns cried in the dark. Machines beeped and died. The power grid had collapsed. Not just in Lahore, but in major cities across Pakistan. Airports were grounded. Water systems stopped. The internet was gone. It wasn't a natural disaster. It was a cyberattack. Ibrahim's fingers tightened around the arm of his chair. He didn't blink. On the screen, someone shouted in Urdu, and the sound broke into static. Then the video went black. A soft knock came at the door. "Come in," Ibrahim said quietly. His advisor, Mariama, stepped in. She was holding a tablet. "It's confirmed," she said. Their entire infrastructure was hit. Electricity, defense systems, even hospitals. They're in the dark. Ibrahim stood up slowly. "Who did it?" Mariama shook her head. "No one is claiming responsibility. But the usual suspects are silent." Ibrahim walked to the window. Outside, the city lights of Burkina Faso were glowing peacefully. But something inside him was restless. "No response from the African Union?" he asked. They released a short statement, monitoring the situation. Nothing more. And the West? They're calling it a regional issue. Ibrahim's jaw clenched. He turned away from the window. "A regional issue," he repeated. "But when they suffer, it becomes the world's problem." Mariama stayed quiet. She had seen this fire in his eyes before. The same fire he had when he took power. The same fire that had scared corrupt generals, shaken the old system, and given hope to the people. Ibrahim walked over to his desk. He opened a drawer and took out a letter. Old, yellowed, carefully folded. It was a letter from his father, written before he died in a forgotten war. "If you ever have power, use it to speak. Speak when others are silent, even if your voice shakes." He folded it back and looked up. "Get me the media team," he said, "and contact the embassy in Islamabad. We're sending help." Mariama looked surprised. "But we're not equipped for—" "I know," he interrupted, "but silence is more dangerous than weakness." She nodded and left quickly. Ibrahim stood alone again. In the corner of the room, the television still showed static. But in his mind, he could hear the cries from that hospital. The chaos. The silence of the world. And then he knew what he had to do. Tonight, he would not speak as a president. He would speak as a human being. He picked up the phone and dialed. "This is President Traoré. Prepare a live broadcast. I want every camera ready. The world is about to hear from Burkina Faso." The wind outside grew stronger. Something had shifted. And far across the world, in the dark heart of a crisis, a light had just been lit. The next morning, the sun rose over Ouagadougou with a heavy sky. Soldiers stood at attention outside the palace. Journalists from local networks gathered in the press room, confused and curious. They weren't told what the announcement was about, only that it was urgent and global. Inside the media room, Ibrahim Traoré stood in front of the cameras. He wore a plain military jacket. No medals. No flag behind him. Just a man, standing straight, eyes calm, heart burning. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. The red light on the camera blinked on. "My name is Ibrahim Traoré," he began slowly, his voice steady. "I speak today not as a leader of a country, but as a son of this earth, a brother to every nation that believes in humanity." Around the world, a few screens lit up. Not many. Just a handful. A small African nation didn't get much global attention. But in a newsroom in Islamabad, a tired journalist caught it. He leaned forward. "I have seen the images," Ibrahim continued, "of children in the dark, of hospitals failing, of a nation suffering. He paused. And I have seen the silence of the world. In that moment, the feed cut through algorithms. A few influencers in Africa shared the speech. Then a Pakistani student studying in Ghana posted the clip. It began spreading. We may be small, he said. We may be poor. But silence is a choice. And we will not choose it. The speech went on for just 4 minutes. But it hit like thunder. His words echoed beyond his borders. His face appeared on screens where no one expected it. Burkina Faso? What's happening there? People asked. The international media turned. CNN ran a headline, West African leader speaks out for Pakistan amid cyber crisis. Al Jazeera replayed the clip. Pakistani news stations picked it up and called him a voice in the dark. But not everyone liked it. 3 hours later, Ibrahim received a call from a French diplomat. The tone was cold. You've made a very unusual move, the voice said. I spoke the truth, Ibrahim replied. President Traoré, the voice continued, Pakistan's situation is delicate. Your speech could be misunderstood. By whom? Ibrahim asked calmly. The people suffering, or those ignoring them? There was a pause on the line. Then the call ended. Mariama entered with a folder. Her face was tense. Cybersecurity experts confirmed it, she said. The attack came from a joint operation. Private firms. Unknown origin. But Western signatures. Ibrahim didn't flinch. They're testing something, he said. And Pakistan was the lab. But why? Mariam asked. To send a message. To show that they can shut down a country without firing a single bullet. That night, Ibrahim walked the streets of Ouagadougou. No guards. No cameras. Just a black hoodie and quiet steps. He needed to feel the earth beneath him. Needed to breathe. As he passed a closed market, he saw an old man sitting on a crate. The man was blind, his white eyes staring at nothing. But he turned his head as if he felt Ibrahim coming. You walk like someone who carries a heavy bag, the old man said with a smile. Ibrahim stopped. Maybe I do. You spoke today, the man whispered. I heard your voice on the radio. You still have a radio? Ibrahim asked. I keep it alive with batteries and prayers, the old man chuckled. Then his voice turned serious. Do you know what you did today? I spoke, Ibrahim said simply. No, the old man said. You chose. And choices like that? They come with a price. What price? The man leaned closer. His eyes saw nothing, but his words hit deep. They will try to make you feel small. Alone. They will come smiling, but their hands will be cold. But remember this, a candle doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be lit when the night is darkest. Ibrahim didn't speak. He stood still. The man touched his arm gently. Do not forget who you are. Then he turned his face back to the sky. Ibrahim walked away, slower this time. The next day, the threats began. An anonymous message reached his intelligence chief. Stay in your lane. You don't know the full game. His foreign aid meetings were suddenly cancelled. One European trade partner pulled out of a deal. A suspicious drone flew near a military outpost. Small signals, but they added up. Mariama walked into his office with a printed article. It showed a U.S. senator speaking on live television. Some African leaders, the senator said, are trying to use Pakistan's tragedy to promote their image. Let's not forget where our alliances stand. Ibrahim looked at the quote and smiled bitterly. They are afraid of honesty, he said, because it doesn't serve their politics. Should we pull back? Mariam asked. This could hurt our international standing. Ibrahim stood up and looked out the window. No, he said. We push forward. He turned back to her. We're going to Islamabad. The air in Islamabad was thick with tension. Military trucks moved silently through the streets. Checkpoints were tighter. News anchors on television wore nervous faces. Pakistan was still in chaos. The cyberattack had ended, but the wounds were open. Hospitals were running, but barely. Water pressure was low. ATM networks were unreliable. The people were angry, but they didn't know who to blame. And then, Ibrahim Traoré arrived. His plane landed quietly. No red carpet. No parade. Just a small car waiting to take him to a private meeting with Pakistan's interim leadership. Inside the secure compound, Ibrahim was led through cold, gray hallways. Mariama walked behind him, holding a black leather folder. The guards barely spoke. When they entered the room, 3 Pakistani officials were already seated, their faces tight with exhaustion. President Traoré, one of them said, "You came a long way." "I came because silence wasn't enough," Ibrahim replied. They talked for over an hour. About rebuilding. About digital protection systems and technical support. Ibrahim offered everything he could: engineers, doctors, food packages, even volunteers. The Pakistani side listened, thankful but guarded. Then one of them said something that made the room go still. "There's something you should see." He pulled out a USB drive and handed it to Mariama. "This isn't public. Our intelligence found it in one of the back doors left in the hacked system. It's a message. Not a code, not malware. A message, left on purpose." They plugged it in. A black screen appeared. Then white text typed itself out, one word at a time. "This is a test. Not a war. Obey the signal or be disconnected. You are not ready for the world we are building." No name. No flag. Just that. Ibrahim leaned forward. "They want submission," he said. "This isn't about Pakistan. This is a rehearsal." Mariama's face was pale. "A rehearsal for what?" Ibrahim answered without blinking. "For control." The Pakistani official nodded slowly. "Our theory, this wasn't just about damage. It was about data. They copied everything. Defense plans, voter records, health files. They know our weakness now, and maybe yours too." Ibrahim stepped back from the screen. His heart pounded. "This message," he said, "it's not just for Pakistan. It's for any country not part of their system." A long silence filled the room. Then Mariama whispered, "They're building a new world order." That night, Ibrahim stood on the balcony of the guest residence, staring out at the faint lights of Islamabad. Below him, the streets moved with slow life. A boy ran after his little sister. A shopkeeper lit a lantern. A soldier leaned against his rifle, yawning. The world hadn't ended. But something had changed. His phone buzzed. It was a private message from his intelligence team back in Burkina Faso. The message had been traced. Not completely, but enough. A shell company in Switzerland. Funded by an institute in Virginia. Tied to a tech security firm that once worked with a major global alliance. Ibrahim's hands tightened. He looked up at the dark sky. And in that moment he realized, they had names. They had offices. They wore suits. And they were using silence as a weapon. This wasn't just politics anymore. It was war, quiet, invisible, cold as steel. And he had walked right into the middle of it. The clock was ticking. Back in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim's phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a message. It was a call. From an unknown number. His stomach twisted. "President Traoré," the voice said, smooth and cold. "I hope you enjoyed your trip to Pakistan. It's a shame it had to end like this." Ibrahim's heart skipped. The voice sounded too familiar. It had the kind of power that left no room for hesitation. "What do you want?" Ibrahim asked, his voice steady, but his grip tightening around the phone. "I want you to make a choice," the voice replied. "Return to your country. Keep your silence. And we will ensure your people never have to suffer. You'll get everything you want. The trade deals. The international respect. Everything." "Is this a threat?" Ibrahim's voice didn't waver. "Not a threat. A promise. We're giving you a chance to walk away from this." There was a brief silence. Ibrahim looked out at the skyline of Islamabad, the city holding its breath, waiting for the storm to break. "And if I refuse?" he asked. "You won't like the consequences." The call ended abruptly. Ibrahim stared at the screen for a long moment. His hand shook only slightly as he placed the phone down on the table. He walked over to the window, his mind racing. It was no longer just about helping Pakistan or supporting the weak. It was bigger. They had seen the power he could inspire. And now they wanted to silence it. The pressure was unbearable, like a vice around his chest. Mariama stepped into the room, her expression grim. "They know, Ibrahim," she said quietly. "They know exactly what you're doing. They've tracked every movement, every decision. You've become a target." "I'm already a target," Ibrahim muttered, pacing the room. "I knew the risks. But silence isn't an option anymore." "We're out of time," she said. "They'll move on us soon. We have to." The door slammed open. One of Ibrahim's guards rushed in. "They're coming, sir. A convoy. Military vehicles. It's a direct order. They're moving to arrest you." Ibrahim's eyes narrowed. He turned to Mariama. "Prepare the broadcast," he said. "It's time to make them listen." Mariama hesitated. "Are you sure? We could run." "No," Ibrahim interrupted. "They want to silence me. But I won't be silenced. Not now. Not ever." He walked to the center of the room and grabbed his jacket. The weight of the decision pressed on his shoulders, but it was the weight he had chosen. Every step had led here. There was no turning back. As they walked toward the media room, Ibrahim's mind flashed back to the blind man in Ouagadougou. The old man's words rang in his ears. "A candle doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be lit when the night is darkest." He had to be the light. The broadcast started. His face appeared on screens across Pakistan and beyond. His words were direct, calm, but full of emotion. The camera zoomed in on his eyes, showing the gravity of the moment. "I stand before you, not just as the president of Burkina Faso," he began, "but as someone who believes that silence will only breed more suffering. You, the people of Pakistan, are not alone. This is not your crisis alone. This is a global failure. A failure to protect you. To protect all of us." In the control room, Mariama's hands were shaking as she watched the feed. They knew what this would cost. Ibrahim was laying everything on the line. His country. His future. His life. Outside, the sounds of the convoy grew louder. Ibrahim could hear the distant rumble of military trucks on the move. The storm was coming. He knew it. But his message was already out there. It couldn't be stopped. Look at the faces of those who have been ignored. The children. The elderly. The ones who live without a voice. I will not turn my back on them. And neither should you. Together we can rise. The cameras cut to the protesters in the streets of Islamabad. Their faces were grim but full of hope. Ibrahim's words had spread like wildfire. The people were beginning to fight back. And then, just as the final words left his lips, the door burst open. He didn't flinch. 2 military officers stormed in, guns raised, but before they could speak, Ibrahim held up his hand. "I've already spoken," he said, his voice firm, unyielding. "And I will not be silenced." The officers hesitated. The room was still. And in that silence, the world was watching. Ibrahim Traoré had made his choice. The standoff in the room seemed to last an eternity, but it was only seconds. The 2 military officers stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. Ibrahim's eyes locked onto theirs, unwavering. The air was thick with tension. Outside, the hum of the convoy faded into an eerie silence, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Then one of the officers lowered his weapon slowly. The other followed suit, but neither spoke. Ibrahim didn't move. He stood there, the weight of his decisions pressing down on him, but his resolve was stronger than ever. The moment stretched out, the room vibrating with a strange stillness. Mariama's voice broke the silence. She stepped forward, her gaze shifting between the officers and Ibrahim. "We're not leaving," she said softly, but her words carried like thunder. "And neither are they." The officers looked at each other, then back at Ibrahim. They knew the situation had escalated beyond simple orders. It wasn't just about arresting a leader anymore. It was about silencing a movement. But in that room, Ibrahim wasn't just the leader of Burkina Faso. He was a symbol, a beacon, a voice for all those who had been forgotten. "We won't be the ones to make history by stopping it," the first officer said quietly, as if surrendering to something larger than themselves. His hand dropped fully from his weapon. The second officer followed suit. "You've already done it." And just like that, the storm seemed to pass. The tension in the room lifted, and the soldiers stepped back, leaving the room as quickly as they had entered. Ibrahim stood there for a moment longer, his breath steady, but his mind racing. As the door closed behind them, Mariama let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. "It's done," she whispered. But Ibrahim didn't answer immediately. He walked to the window and looked out at the city, still alive with the pulse of revolution. His heart beat faster now, but not out of fear, out of something far stronger. It was hope. It was power. He had ignited a spark. Across Pakistan, the protests continued. The government, though shaken, was still standing, but its grip was weakening. Ibrahim's words had reached far beyond his original goal. His stand had inspired others, fueled others to rise up and demand accountability. The people no longer felt small. They no longer felt invisible. They had been seen. Back in Ouagadougou, the media coverage was nonstop. Ibrahim's speech was replayed over and over. But it wasn't just about his words anymore. It was about the global impact. World leaders now looked at Burkina Faso in a new light. A leader had emerged who was unafraid to speak truth to power. A leader who had become a voice for the powerless, even when the price was everything. But Ibrahim knew it wasn't over. The real battle was just beginning. As he turned away from the window, Mariama approached him, holding her phone. "We've received a new message," she said, her voice careful. Ibrahim took the phone from her. The message was short, but chilling. "You may have won this battle, Ibrahim Traoré. But remember, you're not the first candle to burn bright. And you won't be the last." He stared at the message, the weight of it pressing against him. It was a warning. It was a threat. But it was also the beginning of something bigger. Ibrahim knew that the road ahead would be filled with danger, but the world had just been shown the power of standing up, of speaking out. And as long as there was breath in his lungs, he would continue to stand, not just for Burkina Faso, but for the countless others who had been silenced by the shadows. The camera zoomed in on his face as he stood, a man defined not by the positions he held, but by the choices he made. The screen slowly faded to black. The fight for freedom had begun. And this was only the beginning.